Hello, everyone. It's great to be back together, and today we're going to talk SEO search intent. The goal, of course, is to explain to you what search intent is, why there can be several search intents in the same SERP, and how we deal with that. How does that impact things? The fact that we create content, the content we produce, and so on. And I'll try to give you a live example and do a little audit with you on a search intent. Let me introduce myself. My name is Leo Poitvin. I run an SEO agency called Astrak Agency. You can see it with my little flag and my logo. And today we'll be able to do that. We take on clients for content production. And of course, we help them detect the right intents. What are we going to do with it? Are we going to make a page or pages? How do we frame this to avoid doing the what if or how about approach? Like we used to do in 2016 and 2017. And now those pages no longer perform. By the way, these are services we provide. And we have some great successes with several clients. Enough talking. I'm going to share my screen with you so we can start discussing all of this. All right, here we go. Here we go. Today's goal, of course, is to give you a brief analysis of search intent. What exactly is search intent? A lot of people have slightly different definitions. We're actually going to take a quick look at Google's definition. But most of the time, what comes up is more or less what intent refers to, as defined by SEMrush, Ahrefs, and the traditional tools. Is it really an intent? Informational? Does the person want to know something? Like, how do you fix a faucet? Navigational intent, so you're going to log into a site, etc. When you type in a domain name, it's pretty straightforward. Commercial intent, to be able to make a purchase. No, transactional intent to make a purchase. Commercial intent when you're about to reach that intent, and so on. Personally, I think this system with the 4 types of intent is fine, but it's very basic. Too basic, actually. And I think that nowadays, when you're writing a lot of content, informational, as is the case with many blogs or commercial content, in fact, as is the case with many sites, is not really very interesting to have that kind of thing. It's an informational intent that doesn't really change much. I think these are systems that are a bit outdated. And we're going to show you how you can detect intent in a more nuanced way. I searched for several queries and I wanted a specific type of query. And the query I'm going to use is Agents Geo. So Agents Geo is an agency that will help you optimize for AI to be a bit more detailed, a bit more precise, to stand out on ChatGPT. By the way, that's also a service we offer. And I'm going to show you a bit about that. What we have on this page, so this is an intent that people, well, they might call it an intent. I don't know what they'd say. Maybe transactional intent or commercial intent. What interests me is, for me, an intent is what the person expects, what the person is looking for on Google. What is the underlying question when they type in a keyword? And so Geo Agency here, we'll see that we're going to have several pages. First, we have DataShake, which lists the 7 best geo agencies. The advantage of intents is that we can simply identify them from the title. So that's actually pretty good. It's not always the case, but overall, we can do it with the title. Because the intent, in fact, will inherently determine the CTR a page gets and the diversity within a set. I'll explain all these terms to you little by little. The first thing is to attach here the 7 best geo agencies in France. So here we need a top 7 geo agencies. Okay. And so here we're dealing with what I would call a best intent. So we're going to list the best ones. And very quickly on the page, I haven't looked at the page, as you can see. Very quickly on the page, we'll have a table, a ranking, details, etc. That's very often how we get the best agencies. In this case, a little something different. They put a headset at the beginning. I'm not really a fan of putting a headset on a best intent. The criteria, they'll have their listicles, so top 1, top 2, top 3, top 4, etc. So here, they're going with a top 7 for this. Next, we have Eskimos ranking here with their landing page. We're a geo agency. Here's what we're going to do for you. So basically, they're making their own little listicle. Noise, same thing. Uplift, same thing. So here we have 3 great agencies, by the way. Congratulations to you guys for being featured here. Why is it essential? Look at what we do. Look at all the projects we support and so on. So here, we're really looking at something like we're presenting our offer, what we do, all the steps in our process, etc. Next, we have Little Big Things, which once again finds itself in a top 10. So that's quite interesting. Top 10 this time, top 7 the first time. The geo, what is it? And here we have kind of the same system and the top 10 of the best agencies. I think that here too, again, the fact of putting the geo, what is it and why? What is the role of an agency? Geo, it's not necessarily very clever on their part because they have a pretty interesting angle with their top 10. And I won't say they're sabotaging it, but kind of, yes. And after that, of course, it's little big thing. It's Andrea who's in charge. So we have Eskimos in first place. And then we're going to have a few agencies that aren't necessarily the most well known, nor really their competitors. This allows them to promote different worlds and make a top 10 without really making a top 10, which is pretty clever. There's natural net, ranking of geo and LLM agencies. So this time we're going to go back to a ranking. Ranking equals top 10. Ranking equals who's the best. That's kind of the idea behind it. So here we're going to have a summary and all that stuff. And my table, there you go. Also very heavy for a top 10. But hey, apparently that's what works. So at some point, you can't really go against the flow either. Maybe we'll end up doing that too, because I don't really like it. I'm probably going to make a heck of a top 10. But listen, for now, that's kind of the idea. So we have two types of pages. We have landing pages. We have top 10s. Here what for? A landing page, there you go. And here, another landing page. And here, we're going to have another landing page. So we have 2 top 10s, 3 top 10s, and 6 or 7 landing pages. There you go. Now we can go and check it. Adds Up is an agency. They have a landing page here. There you go, Adamio, a landing page here. So humans, a landing page as well. And what you'll notice is that on none of the landing pages do they mention competitors. Whereas in contrast, the top 10s are nothing but mentions of competitors along with explanations about them. We can go check it. There you go. Very quickly, it mentions competitors. It explains why they're good, what they're not good at, etc. So roughly speaking, we really have 2 types of content formatting that will appear, 2 approaches, which is what I usually call an approach, and 2 underlying questions, like when someone types in geo agency. On one hand, there are people who come to find out which is the best agency, and we have to answer by saying which is the best agency. Secondly, there are people who come with a landing page, who are themselves agencies, and who will be able to present it that way. At this point, if you're not an agency, creating a landing page is a bit strange. It's unlikely that making a landing page like that, explaining your process, etc., it would be very relevant if you're not an agency. The advantage I have is that I'm an agency, so I can approach it from that angle, which is one way to go about it. But we also have a second approach, which is this one, actually, the one used by the best agencies. These are 2 different approaches, even though, on the other hand, our friends at Chemrochref would tell us that these are always commercial intents, maybe even transactional, even if it's not really transactional, because the person hasn't actually searched for pay a geo agency, etc. But there you go. I'm going to show you 2 things. The first point is, how do we refine this query? For me, refining a query is exactly that. It's about saying, okay, so here, a better intent on one side and a landing page on the other. What are we going to do? The first is the intent, better. I'm going to search for best geo agency. And what happens here? We find natural net, we find data shake, we find little big sinks, which are 3 things that were already in our previous ranking and are still here. There are others that show up, which is normal, but we no longer have all the ones we had before. And we have Add Up coming in with a second page here. This is extremely interesting because we have exactly the framework that is the most interesting of all. Add Up, they have a best geo agency page and they have a geo agency page, while on the geo agency page, there are best pages that show up. So here, it's a bit complicated to understand, to see, to grasp. But what happens is that on this page, on Agents Go, we don't have just one intent, but 2 sub-intents, 2 different angles of approach. And you don't have to choose. You are not required to choose. The proof is that some haven't chosen. Add Up hasn't chosen. They made a landing page, which is here, which will be called Agents Geo and GSO, and where they will present their services. But they also made a ranking, a top 10. Here, as we can see, they're going to put what's up here, top 10 of the best geo agencies. So what do you do when you want to rank for Agents Geo? I'm a geo agency. I want to rank for Agents Geo. What do? I have 2 types of pages I can create, and I would even say that I will create, which will target 2 different angles. On one side, the landing page, and on the other side, the top 10 best. So finding the landing pages isn't necessarily easy to identify the landings. I'm going to try 2 or 3 things. I haven't done it before. So let's see what happens, just to get an idea. If we manage to identify only the landing pages, I think if we do something like Agents Geo Paris, we'll get more landings there. So let's go check it out. I'm not sure either, but anyway, we're switching to full local mode. Okay, all right, that's settled. And otherwise, let's try something else. Agents Geo, what could we find with Agents Geo? Maybe Agents Geo France, perhaps? Thank you. So I'm on the Lou website. Here we end up with almost exactly the same top 10, not quite, but about 80% the same. So in this case, we're dealing with the same intent. So that's kind of the question here. It's how does Goal do its clustering of keywords? How does it cluster the keywords together? Why Agents Geo France? It's the same thing as Agents Geo. There are top 10S, there are classics, there are landing pages. If we go to meilleur, it's a clustering that's just slightly different. Because actually with meilleur Agence Geo, we only get top 10 results. And here clustering is different, only top 10, only best, etc. And here you might wonder, why is there a best agency cluster, but also people from the best agency cluster who show up in the SEO agency cluster? Actually, it's often a kind of subtopic logic. If you are the best or among the best for meilleur agence geo, specifically among the highest ranked in general, you will also show up for agence geo because in fact, Google has realized that when it puts top 10s or best of or listicles on agents geo, people click a lot. So it thought, okay, let's go. Those who are part of that, we'll go and test them. What you need to know is that I'll give you an example. There's the what is, for instance, which is a fairly traditional intent. So for example, what is a geo agency? Here we're going to see what comes up because very often what is can also be something that appears when we have nothing or when it's relevant, etc. And so here what we see is that we don't get the same page at all, nor the same intents that come up compared to geo agency. Geo agency, we have a top 10, we have landing pages, etc. What do we get here? In this case, a consulting firm. Why not with a distinction between an agency and a consulting firm? We have web conversion, which we didn't have earlier, by the way, in the landing pages. We have agents SEO.fr, where there you go, HRF. So we'll find some landing pages a bit later on, but overall, at the very beginning, the intent is detected more at the start than at the end of a SERP, because generally that's where most of the CT1 is at stake. But right at the beginning, we actually have things that are different, pages that are different. So the what is going to be something different again. And here we have it, agency geo definition. The what is and definition are generally the same keyword. Offered service and advantage. So here they're trying to define the what is, etc. And here we see that Webcon, they have a big section. What is a geo agency? And they, on their end, rank because they had a first insert. What is a geo agency as well, in my opinion? That's probably what they have to do. We have YouTube on several things and a bit of the what is and the definition. These are often things that lead to YouTube. How to as well. These are things that lead to YouTube. So here we have geo agency. On geo agency, we're going to have, in this case, a section for the best and a section for the NDMA. So we're going to take a look and reflect on it. The question is, what am I going to do on my end? So let me quickly introduce my site to you. It's called Astrac Agency, where we do things, offer services, etc. The best way for me to know in advance what the situation is this. On my site, I make a site with points. Geo agency, because right now I want to see the list of pages I have on geo agency that are relevant. What do we see? We see geo agency, which is here. And this, what is it? It's my landing page in this case. I know it's here. It's in the menu right there, geo. And here we have geo agency. And we have my somewhat traditional landing page like the others have done. So we're good here. We have a landing page. It's viable, etc. It's not perfect, but overall it's solid. And it could start to nudge into the top 10 if I had a bit more authority on my site with a bit more age. It's hard to compete against agencies that have been around for 10 years and have a lot of history when I've only been here for a year. But in any case, that's not what we're interested in today. What we're interested in is, what do I do then with the rest? Is it enough? What else can I do? I'm going to do like Heads Up did. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to go check first. Maybe I have something, but here you see I have a geo consultant SERP. Why not? But that's not what we're interested in. What we're interested in is the best geo agency. And here I see that I have a top 10 of the best SEO agencies, but I don't have a top 10 of the best geo agencies. So what I can do is, even though there's only one keyword I'm targeting, we're going to make a top 10 of the best geo agencies. That's what we're interested in here, in this case. And I'm going to show you a bit how I build my page purely based on intent systems. And how I identify the interesting intents, etc. Here, you see, if I look at one and scroll up, we're going to have a landing page. After that, it's mostly landing pages though. We have a bit of a top 10 at the beginning, but after that, it's mostly landing pages anyway. Landing, landing, landing. Here, we really have the landing pages from everyone who went for this. Here we find some top 10S, rankings of the best agencies. It's quite interesting. We can see that it's a bit of both things mixing together. And for me, that's still just my point of view, but there's no issue of cannibalization. If we target angles that are really different and keep them well separated, I'm going to explain the aspect of separation to you, and I'll try to show you, in this case with Heads Up, whether, in my opinion, there's a separation error or not. But it's going to be interesting. Heads Up, consulting best agency. And we're even going to look at the geo part. I'm going to type their full name. And here we're going to see something. We can already see here that there might be a slight problem with cannibalization, because when you type Edizub Consulting Best Geo Agency, the first result in P0 is this one. Now P0 is a bit different, so we're not really going to judge them on that. And indeed, the problem I see with AdZub when they take this approach is that the first thing they do is ask, what is geo? So you see, they start with a question, what is geo? Fortunately, it's answered very quickly. And after that, they give us a ranking that's not too bad and so on. It's a bit light, but it's solid. It still holds up very well, honestly. And kudos to them for that. On the other hand, we have their entire landing page. And on that, we're going to see why do geo the challenges in the era of GSO. And potentially we might have a bit of a case study. I'd like to quickly check if they have a case study system down there in question. It's okay. It's still reasonable. But well, it's nothing crazy. And when we look at the best side of AdsUp, what do we get? AdsUp is part of it. So you see, you can tell that Google is able to pick up more easily on the fact that they said they were pioneers on their page, their landing, rather than on their top 10 best. But for me, that's kind of where you can make a small difference and you won't cannibalize yourself. I'm afraid that here they're cannibalizing themselves a little bit. I don't think that's 100% the case, but they are cannibalizing themselves a little. And in my opinion, they could avoid it if, as things stand, they split things up properly. That part, you see, we're pioneers here. They remove it, or at least they manage to handle it differently. There we go. So I'm going to try to find that little piece of text again. I can't even find it on their page. That's funny. All right, let's go see where this takes us. The text has probably been changed in the meantime. I think that if we check Google's indexing, it's not the same page that's in Google's index. And for that, and here they have the helmet-like aspect. So actually, if we remove this helmet-like aspect, put in a real listicle and really go into that mode. Top 10 best ranking, like what I did. I'll try to show you a bit on my side, SEO agency. So here, Astrac, best agencies, which is content I didn't create that long ago. You'll see we're going to end up with, in this case, here we go, quite a lot of things. And here, mine is really very targeted. Top 10, you can feel it right away. Here we go, a top 10 here, which is a comparison of the best agencies. And after that, we have a listicle. So at the end, obviously, for semantics, to lengthen the content a bit and add some interesting things. We have other things coming up. We're going to see which are the SEO agencies in Paris, etc., which is a bit more focused on something slightly different. But basically, we're still very top 10 oriented and very much aligned with the top 10, because the intent behind best SEO agencies in this case was top 10, and we need a listicle. Here for SEO agency, we have a mix between a listicle on one side and a landing page on the other. So I'm not going to show you the landing page aspect. I'm going to show you the listicle aspect because I don't have a listicle for this yet, and we'll be able to create one. So I'm going to go with that and we'll start making our page. I'm going to use Tote&SEO, which I like to use for this kind of thing. And to check the intent a bit, I'm also going to open up our friend SERPmantics just to take a look and see if both tools agree on what needs to be done or not. And now error, classic error. I'll see if I can show it to you with Agents Geo. No, not here. I'm going to run an analysis. So for me, the common mistake people make is to go looking for it. Agents Geo, because Agents Geo is going to be both. It's very difficult for a tool like Tote&SEO to make the distinction I just made by eye between. Here, there's a subtle intent. On one hand, there's a subtle sub-intent, and on the other, another subtle sub-intent. So let's see what Tote&SEO has to say about this. And for me, what I'm really interested in isn't Agence Geo, but rather meilleur, still with the goal of ranking for it. A little tip, if you put them in the plural, like meilleures agences Geo, for example, let's write it properly anyway. You'll see that overall, it tends to bring up more listicles than if you use the singular. That's just a detail. Let's prepare our two SERPs. We're going to prepare the same thing on SERPmantics on the other side, and I'll try to clearly show you this matter of intent on these two semantic tools to see if they manage to bring it out well or not. But very often it's something that's a bit more complicated. There we go, agents.go in the singular. That's often what gives us the most landing pages. Come on, I want French language, mister. There we go. Should we pull this up on this side? So now we'll let them work little by little, and we'll start creating our own content, knowing that we want a top 10. As usual, we'll go to cloud. We're going to do something a bit nice. There we go. Let's get rid of this. And I'm going to show you a little thing I didn't show you last time, which is really great for getting good quality content produced, let's say, quite easily. I'm going to go to my little project for this, and I'll show you a detail I didn't show you last time, but which is particularly interesting, which I haven't done here yet. So this will be perfect. It'll be a good opportunity to do it. It's simply about adding a kind of guide that's particularly interesting for improving content quality. There we go. And I'll show you actually quite simply, our dear friend Paul Grillet made us a guide, production content quality. I'll show you where it's located. So where is it? Normally it's at the bottom. Will I find it or not? I'm not going to find it. Yes, exactly. The Bible of content creation is up here. Very solid. We've discussed it many times, so I know I basically agree with it. And I'm not going to bother Paul to go read everything because right now I don't have the time. And this is the kind of thing that Paul and I pretty much agree on. But the goal is for my AI, on the other hand, to incorporate all of this. So we're going to take all of Paul's content creation Bible. We're going to go there. There's the little checklist at the end, etc. I'll stop here. Usually I put everything into a TXT file, which gives us really good guidelines for producing the content. And I'll show you this really quickly. You can't see it right now because I'm in a TXT file, but I'm quietly copy pasting our stuff. Bible, creating good content. SEO. And now directly in my cloud project, what I can do is add here. Select and upload from your device in my downloads folder. And I'm going to add a point to my instructions. You can make use of the Holy Bible for your study. In order to generate high quality SEO content, I'm not entirely sure if it uses the Bible. It uses the guidelines from the Bible to create good SEO content. So I'll just read this. Honestly, that'll do. There we go, there we go, there we go. I'll read the instruction anyway. To create good content as an instruction. As an instruction. All right, let's go. So this allows us to go through all the research our dear friend Paul did for us, which is a big, big doc, and it's pretty solid. So as a result, we've got something pretty nice. I'll show you next then quickly. All right, now we're going to make our best page. We'll see here, normally we should be good with this. Best, it's here. All right, here we go. And here we just have our agents geo page, which is coming very, very soon. So let's go check out our best. So here it's pretty simple because we go straight into how to choose which are the best, what services they offer. So here we know that the intent has been well reworked because we're starting with something that's a bit different, a bit lighter. So in this case, we're going to have something nice because the intent is unique. Once again, we looked at the titles on the best page. We really only have listings, best ofs, etc., which makes sense. The question someone asks when they type best geo agency is simply, which is the best geo agency? When they type geo agency, sometimes they're also wondering which is the best one. Sometimes they're asking, yo, give me a list. I just want a few agencies. Geo, I just want to find the right agency. I want to look at 2 or 3 landing pages, etc. So in this case, that's what we're dealing with. Also, one thing I wanted to mention is don't use HTML because we're going to copy and paste into a WordPress blog. So just simple and plain text, the way we usually do it. WordPress. I'm just saying this so he doesn't add bullet points or styles. That's what I mean. Because otherwise it's my AI that usually adds styles and creates my landing pages. So it's going to make something very nice for us, but it might be a bit over the top. So here the goal is to have all of that. So we're going to have all of that. Our thing will be interesting and we'll go ahead and copy it. There we go. We'll copy it to add the traditional terms. Add the following terms. There we go. So we're good here. And the last point is that we're going to give it a little something, a small guideline, you see, which will be interesting. And we're going to take a look. I'm going to very quickly check the ranking I made for myself, my own ranking, SEO agency, just so we can double down on that. I'll see if there are a few that we want to push even further. But I don't really feel like overall, you see, we have anything to promote. What I'm looking for here is, are there any named entities? Because actually, since we're working on a best of listicle, since we're doing a best of, in this case, we're going to need a list of competitor companies. In any case, we'll need to mention competitors, we'll need to mention named entities, so people with profiles, real companies, etc. And I'm wondering if we actually want to do that for certain things, especially if there are things that need to be included every time. And that we'll see very quickly. I'll give you a quick reminder. If we go to Best Geo Agency, for example, we'll see very quickly. Here, my goal is to see if there are listings, names that come up every time, etc. Knowing that in this case, unfortunately, they don't give us the named entities, I think, Tote. I'll go check, but I already checked last time. And I don't think so. We had LLM, we had NLP, but we have the derivatives, but we don't have the rest. Yeah, I should ask. There, that's interesting. We can see the top traditional SEO points. That's the number of occurrences depending on the items, etc. On the NLP, do we have anything interesting? No. List? No. No. Unfortunately, we don't have the named entities that I would like, but it's not a big deal. So there we go. And now what will interest us is that we have our thing. We more or less know what we want. Who are we mentioning then? So in our top 10, we're going to mention the same ones we cited for the previous part. SEO, because in this case, all the agencies I worked with that did SEO also do geo. So we'll be able to reuse that a bit, that ranking for all of this. Maybe, is there anything in there we could take out? No, we'll keep everyone. Maybe we'll make a smaller top list and I'll just remove a few. A few where I'm not sure if they do SEO or not. There we go. All right, let's go read that. The agencies to mention. So obviously, in first place, we're going to have Strike. Primarily, it's always quite interesting. We're going to give it a slightly different order. I want to include people I find very strong, people I find very interesting on this geo part. For now, unfortunately, I haven't seen many people who have done anything crazy on the geo part, but there are some that I know who are quite interesting and quite strong. I don't have a build for Lucio, for example, but I want to put him in second place along with 11, because in this case, since he has a strong presence in Link Finder, we know the method he uses and I like what he does. After that, I'm going to remove SEO Mix because I didn't hear them at all on this part. GEO, unfortunately. So we're not going to talk about it right now. CMJ only does offsite, and the way they do things, I don't think it pays off for the geo part, so I'm quickly taking them out of the ranking as well. Maybe we should put Datashake or KWO. I'm going to put KWO because I like KWO. They regularly show up in the rankings. So I think it's relevant to have them in the ranking. We'll put them here. SEO Hackers, SEO Monkey. I'm going to keep them because they're friends who still do some of the work. I haven't heard about SEO Hackers in this field, so I'm just going to put them a little lower. I'm going to put them here this time. I'm going to keep SEO Monkey because I know they often cover the topic. And do we have any other people to rank? I'm quickly checking what's on the other top 10 best lists, and that will give me a bit more material. Natural, Net, SEO, Secret, they've been sold. It's less interesting. Do they dare to put SEO.far, the classic? We don't have a lot of really good geo agencies, even though there are some. So it's not amazing, but well, it's noted here. Yeah, Promouvoir, which is still present here regularly, but unfortunately, Promouvoir, they're very local and all that. I don't think they have a strategy that's really super strong. They haven't impressed me yet, at least not with their strategy. We can add ads up. Come on, let's add ads up. We hadn't included them in our rankings yet. We'll put them in this time because I think what they're doing is interesting. Overall, let's put them right here. That gives us a top 10 like this. We're good and we have what we need. I'll just put this back calmly at 9, and there you go. That's a top 10. So Emako, we come here, there we go. So the agencies to mention were good, and there it is. What I really want is a big listicle. Checking Todd's place quickly. We need about 2,500 words, so I'll ask him for 3,000. Give me 3,000 words. 3,000 words on the subject. And there already, we should be pretty well overall, and I'm also going to ask him to do some research. At each of the agencies, for comparison, I'm writing this any old way, to compare and explain there are different methods for geo. So at this point, you might be thinking, yeah, Leo, why are you doing this for us? It's a bit weird. Why does it not matter? Because here, you're just doing content production. What's important is this. There you go, compare. Actually, we're aiming for a better intent. So we're going to go with a listicle. It's really going to be a top 10, and we want to compare We shouldn't just quickly start listing agencies and so on. With the best intent, we'll need to make comparisons. We'll need to say why, simply explain why one is ranked above another, etc. Start with an ordered list. So that's interesting. Why the list? OL, because the OL list is the ordered list in HTML. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the first ahead of the second. And for making a listicle of the best, basically a top 10 of the best, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's important. Make a table. There you go, make a ranking table. That's important too. Quite simply, you need to make a ranking table because the ranking table is going to be important in terms of placement. So that's cool. Right here, I'm going to tell the system about these 3 specific columns so that it stays digestible on mobile, because otherwise tables on mobile end up stacking. So there you go. This way we have something that's going to be easy to read on mobile. We have pretty much all our intents that need to be addressed. Here, I'm going to write down intent to address. And after that, we'll have our page, our keywords. We've got the stuff. I told it, do research on the agencies, do research to compare, explain each one's method. Okay, we're good here. Well, overall, we're not doing too bad. We've got some material to work with. Normally, the page should turn out well. We've put it in the project and we've given it Paul's Content Creation Bible. So we're going to process this. We'll send this out and see what comes of it. On the other hand, while we're waiting for the content to be created, to refine things little by little, I'm going to check on SERPmantics to see how things are going in terms of intent. What does it detect for us when we type in this thing? And similarly, just like that, we're going to compare our 2 semantic tools and see what's happening. When we search for agent JO, what does it detect as the intent? Do I agree with that or not? So here you see we have something that's quite interesting actually with our dear friend Thought, and we're going to see what it looks like on the other side. So now I'm looking, we're going to take a look at what's happening on the intent side with SERPmantics. We'll start with SERPmantics just to see how it goes. We can see it pretty quickly. Pay attention to number 1, definition and understanding of geo. It's true that everyone answers this question very quickly, and especially all the landing pages. Here you can see landing, everything that's a landing page explains what geo is. Finding a geo agency. So here, in this case, we're dealing with something a bit broader. How do you go about finding a geo agency, etc.? Finding a geo agency, be careful, that's also a slightly stronger intent. Here, it's kind of, you see, we're playing between the two. It's an intent that, is it correct? And you see, when someone wants to find a geo agency, the landing page is the best, it works. Definition and understanding of geo, and then we have the services and methodology of geo agencies. So here, it's quite interesting because each one explains its service and methodology. That's really the definition of a landing page in this case. Cost of services, importance, and benefits of geo. So here, what SERPmantics is suggesting to us is basically to create more or less a landing page and approach it from an angle. What is geo? We are a geo agency. Here are our services and methodologies, and here is the cost of the service. That's more or less what they're proposing to us. So they're suggesting we target the SERP, which is quite interesting, not necessarily to approach it with a better angle, etc., but more with a landing page angle. And that's how they're doing it. So I think, okay, honestly, not bad. It's interesting. And you can see it's something I love and that I think is done quite well. SERPmantics. In this part, he reframes each of the intents as a question. And for me, I think an intent is a question someone is asking themselves. So there you go. And to reframe is to put it as a question. What is the difference between geo and SEO? What is it, etc.? What is the best geo agency? So here, there's a bit of an angle, but overall, finding a geo agency usually happens more through landing pages than through this. So in my opinion, the questions here are good, but this isn't really the way you should answer them, or at least it should be done a bit differently, etc. What services does an agency offer? So here, it's quite interesting because that's really the angle being taken. It's more of a landing page angle. In my opinion, it's getting a bit sidetracked here by the best part, but overall, it's taking a landing page angle that's quite interesting and that I think works. So let's go take a look on the other side and here, it's really funny because Todd gives us a completely different angle. So both tools give you a completely different angle and both are actually totally right. Because Paul tells you, Paul with Todd, I say Paul as if Paul were talking to me, but it's actually Todd, his tool. What is the best geo agency in France? Well, that's a better angle. It's not exactly the same angle as the landing part. How do you choose an effective geo agency? That's more of a better angle. You see how to choose the best agency. So here, we're really looking at something better. What are the advantages of geo? Okay, why not? how to improve visibility with a geo agency. Here, that's potentially the kind of work we can do, both on the landing page and on the other one. What geo strategy for SEO? How does geo impact traditional SEO? So here, we're dealing with something that's more in line with the direction Paul is suggesting. It's more of a better direction. And it's pretty funny because we have two tools, which, in my opinion, neither of them got it wrong this time. It's just that both picked up on different signals, which means that this SERP, I'll show it to you again because the goal is really to see and understand this, because I still see the traditional mistake that people make. They come across this, and what they do is they do both. They create a landing page, and in the middle or at the end of the landing page, they put a top 10 of the best. And then they explain what geo is because they want to cover all the topics from all the competitors to take everything that's covered by all the competitors and cover it all themselves. But that's not how it works because people don't want to have everything in a Bible. People want to have a specific angle, a particular well-defined angle that is chosen and developed, whether it's a landing page that explains it. But on a landing page, they don't want to see the best of the best stacked together. They don't necessarily want to see or know exactly the services, exactly all of that, etc. They want the best and a list. And why you see here, look, number one is ahead of number two, a bit of an opinion on each one, etc. And each time that's how it is, kind of this angle is about saying, okay, well, top 10. Okay, so here they're giving us a top 10. Explain to us a bit the method of each one. Why is number one ahead of number two? Why is number two ahead of number three? When it's the opposite on a landing page, you don't need to talk about the competitors. We want you to explain your method to us. That's quite interesting, etc. And so here, both of them gave us two slightly different perspectives, I think. That's how it seems to me. Tote gave us a better perspective. So an angle where, boom, we go into detail, we make a list, we explain a bit why the best are the best or whatever, and what's inside, quite simply. But Tote still has a bit of a bias. He wants a better angle, but you can sense that behind it, he's trying to pick up for landing. He's trying to bring in a bit of landing, how Go impacts classic SEO, etc. On the other hand, in terms of intent, what do we have? Definition and understanding of Go. So here we're really more focused on something, on finding an agency, even if there's something better here overall. We're dealing with something here. Both are valid, but I find that both are a bit vague, floating between the two intents, the two tools. And unfortunately, they don't quite manage to grasp this double distinction. Afterwards, that's my method regarding intent. I wouldn't say it's the only valid method. So now we're starting to have some substance. He went off to do some research. He has information on each of the agencies, and he's going to make us a little listicle that will come out afterwards. Well, that's cool. He's going to start by gathering all the information, and that's quite interesting. I'm going to pause here because I don't want to do something that's too long on this since we're waiting for Claude to make progress. We're going to make our best page, publish it, and then we'll have our own two search intents. In this case, with two different angles, I'll probably take a short break here and then resume when I'm working on editing the page. Just to show you a bit about why a best page is, it's different from a regular page. Monday. While my Claude article is generating, there was one more point I thought would be interesting to mention to you. The point is, why do we have search intents? Why is it that at this moment we have different search intents? And the reason behind it, why do we have them right now? And landing pages from the top 10, that rank, and nothing else. Why don't we have big guides, actually? Right now, if we have different search intents, specifically something like this, it's entirely due to CTR and user behavior on the SERP. What we mean by that is that search intent is really something that has emerged post-2020. Because the share of user behavior on Google has increased tremendously, and quite simply, user behavior is more important than before. Right now, when someone types in SEO agency, sometimes they'll click on a landing page, sometimes they'll click on a top 10 result, but it's rarely the same people clicking on the same things. The thing is, there are two different types of people. Let's say people who have two different kinds of questions coming in. Some want landing pages and others want top 10 results. So how does Google decide whether to show a top 10 result or a landing page? Actually, it will test things out. It will gradually show a bit of landing pages and a bit of top 10 results. And it observes based on CTR and user behavior on the sites, plus, of course, all the usual criteria, content quality and traffic to determine whether it should move one factor up or down. So in this case, for the top 10, we have people clicking because we have this data check ranking that comes up a lot. And we also have people clicking on the landing page because in this case, we have landing pages that are ranking higher. So actually here in Google's eyes, in my opinion, when people search geo agency, maybe about 30% of people click on the top 10 and maybe a bit more, 70% click on a landing page. So it can split search intents like that. And that's why sometimes you might find, for example, that a data shake is ranked first, but it gets a bit fewer clicks than it normally would. It gets them if it's first. Why? Because data shake has a better intent and it doesn't have a landing intent. And maybe most people want a landing intent, but we still might have about 30% of people who want a better intent and who will go check out data shake. If there were very, very, very few people who wanted a better intent, well, Datashake might, with 10%, maybe be in 5th, 6th, or 8th place. You see here with little big things. And maybe we would have something that would be much lower and positioned differently, done differently. So basically, it's mostly about what proportion of people want to see, what want to click on what type of title. That's really what a lot of it comes down to. And if a large proportion of people want to click on something better, it's not the same as if a large proportion want to click on this, on landings. So it's kind of like that. The two types of pages, depending on the two types of people, how they are addressed. And here it pains me to say this because I rarely do, but we have different personas. That is, people with different expectations, with different aspirations in terms of search, who are sometimes at different stages of the funnel. You might have someone who clicks on the best of listicle, but you could also have someone who clicks on a landing page because they want to go straight to one of the 4 or 5 big agencies they already know and can check out. If the person is searching like, okay, I want one, but which one is the best? Boom, they jump right on that. If both types rank, it's because we have both types of people, both types of personas coming into this SERP who have different motivations, who want different things, and who are going to look for different points. It's going to be very, 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 very rare that with ourselves or ads up, for example. Let's take the example of ads up because it was quite interesting. They're not there anymore. They're here. There you go. For ads up to have both URLs in the top 10, for example, one that gets them on the first page for Agence Geo and another in the top 10 for Mes Agences. Geo and another one on the Google Salon will choose. Which of our 2 pages is the most relevant for ourselves? And it's very difficult to influence that. There are a lot of people who often want their landing page to come up instead of their top 10, for example. But unfortunately, if you've been picked up with the top 10, let's at least be happy that we're already starting to show up on Google. And we'll try to keep capitalizing on the top 10, sending traffic to the landing page with a big button right at the start and so on. That's how it is, but generally, roughly speaking, Google will choose for us. That's why I like to send it both pages, the best page and the hot page. Here, we'll avoid making both the best page and the landing page donors and ending up with both of them showing up. Google chooses whichever one it wants. It will choose the one it wants based on user behavior, whichever one gets picked up the best. By the way, if we ourselves send traffic to our landing page, there's a higher chance that our landing page will rank higher rather than our top 10. If we send traffic to the table page and it gets shared and goes viral, well, it's more likely that one will rise up because Google relies heavily on user behavior these days. And that's why we see a mix of intents on these kinds of things. I'll try to give you another example very quickly while we're here about a mix of intents and a mix of searches. For example, when you search for a SEO consultant, you'll get several different things. I'm taking a quick look. It's quite interesting. For example, we have job description, salary, and training. So here we're dealing with students or young people or those looking to change careers who want to know what an SEO consultant is and how to get trained for it, how much it pays, etc. Just so you know, it pays well. And then there's Hello Work, which does the same thing. So here, most people are looking for job descriptions, salary information, training, and so on. What are the tasks at CMJ? So here, we're more focused on the job responsibilities, what the person has to do, and so on. And then in this case, there's also finding a consultant. So this time it's someone looking for a consultant. That's what we have here. Here we also have someone, a consultant, offering their own services. So in this case, we're going to have something which is similar to find a consultant, but can be oriented differently. Landing page, job offer. So here it's you are a consultant and you're looking for a job as an SEO consultant. So here it's yet another type of person who will click on something different. Indeed, job offer as well. And we can see, looking at this, that the majority, maybe 50% of the people who land on this page, what they want is to learn about the profession, the salary, and the training. But there are also some who type this keyword and want to know, who want to find a consultant, who are looking for a consultant. These aren't people looking to change careers who are searching for the consultant profession. So what is it? And then there are others, in this case, who are consultants and are looking for a job offer. So here we have a mix of 3 different intentions, 3 different concepts. Obviously, we won't address all 3 in the same way. If we wanted to rank, for example, as an agency on this topic, we could approach it from 3 different angles. We could go with something like, what is the consultant profession, and so on, simply for recruitment purposes, probably. Because here, we're dealing with an audience that's more likely to be looking for recruitment. There's little chance we'll sell an SEO service to people who are searching for what is it, the salary, the job of an SEO training. but we could potentially recruit them. We could go with things like, what are the responsibilities? How to find one? Why do you need a consultant? SEO, something a bit more targeted. What do you need? An angle I don't really like because it's a bit vague. Top 10 best SEO consultants, which is interesting. But here you can tell that's not really what's being shown either. So not really interesting in this case. And we could also have a SEO consultant angle. So there you go. Actually, what's interesting is that the top 10, for example, we kind of have it here. It's not a top 10, but you'll see, I think there must be a top 10 behind it. Ah, no, here it's why do you need one? How do you find someone? And then there's someone, a directory that allows you to find that. So in this case, we're more on something that's about why you need one, similar to what CMJ does. So we have why do you need one twice? What are their tasks, etc. We have things like join the sector, get recruited, and so on. And we have job postings. We would need a lot of job postings to be ranked in there. So it's very complicated to go down that route unless you're basically a recruitment directory. Even with my 5 job offers, we're barely going to compete there, unfortunately. And then there are other things. We have the job description, which is going to be the most obvious one here. The vast majority of people are looking for the job description, and a small segment of people are looking for work as consultants, which is somewhat related to the job description, because these are people who are consultants or young consultants or consultants not yet in a position who are looking for something in that area. And then there's a bit of a business-oriented angle. What is the role? Why do you need this? Which is kind of in between. And in the end, also speaks a little to people looking for work when we do CMJ. What are the tasks for people looking for jobs? But France.nam.gouv, you might say, no, that's different, etc. Because it says find a consultant in the title. It ranks here because it's the government. I'm telling you straight. If it wasn't the government, in my opinion, this page wouldn't rank because it hasn't been updated in ages and because the angle they take is more about determining your needs, analyzing your objectives. And so the question is kind of, the question they're answering is if someone lands on the page and reads the content, it's going to be, what do I need from an SEO consultant? Why do I need an SEO consultant? What is the UC and so on? Rather than really a listicle with a top 10, find the best ones. When someone types in SEO consultant, they're more likely wondering, what is it? What is their role, whether it's from a candidate's perspective or from a company's perspective? Why do I need a consultant? SEO from my side. And we're also going to have landing pages from people who are consultants and who offer their consulting services. Shout out to Hugo, who is actually, well done to you. He's actually the only one in terms of landing pages. So there you go. I wanted to give you a little extra intent analysis before diving into my content. Best moving forward geo, which is currently being produced by our friend Jamie. No, not Jamie, Claude. So I've quietly finished my article this time on WordPress. Well, at least Claude has finished generating it for me. And I'm going to make 2 or 3 points where we'll rework this article so it matches better. The intent. The first thing is, of course, we're on the top 10 best. There we go. The first point, which is quite interesting, especially for the AI part, is what are you going to find in this article? So right from the start, the AIs can know what's going to be in it. It's also pretty good for people in general. And honestly, it makes for something quite interesting. I think the good part here is this. The pragmatic part is that afterwards we have a table. So ranking of the best agencies, that's great. It's really nice. I'd like to have a bit more of a listicle approach because here we have the best agencies overall, but we don't have a top 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, that's ranked in order. So we're a little less into it. And then very quickly we get to what is an agency, why you need one, how to choose a geo agency, which are all very good things to cover. But before anything else, we'll need to explain the precise listing of the best ones and go deeper into that. So what we're going to do now is rework the content, and we're simply going to start over. What happened here, everything that's in there, we're going to move it just below the table. We'll also probably add a short list directly as list 1, 2, 3, which is an ordered list like the one here, but this time with the list right away, just to give Google a bit of varied content, the table, the ordered list, and then our definition, our detailed description of each agency. And then we can move on to some traditional semantics. So you have things like how to choose, more in-depth content, etc. To provide some explanations for people who want to dig deeper into their research. But for those who are here for the basic search, their initial intent is to see the ranking of the top 10 best. So we'll give them a ranking of the top 10 best right from the start. We're finally gradually reaching the end of our optimization. So I can finally show you what we've managed to accomplish during this test and give you a look at it. I'm adding a few things, a few images, because at some point we can allow ourselves to add some images to have things that are a bit more appealing. These are just little AI generated images. They're not necessarily super high quality. I'm sorry about that in advance, but the point here was to finish up and have something a bit more digestible than just the big block of text. So you'll be able to take a look at that calmly, and I'll show you a bit of the reasoning behind it. I'll try to explain to you a bit specifically some of the points which are interesting and that I was able to do in addition to what I mentioned earlier. And in particular, the point that's going to be interesting is this whole aspect. All right, we'll wrap up with that. There we go. And like that, everything looks good. We've got our images, everything is nice. There we go. The point I'm going to show you, the final point of this whole thing, is really the details. Clearly, it's the details that are interesting. All right, let's save this and I'll show you right away. The most important detail is to answer this intent, which intent is best, as quickly as possible. It's always difficult to define an intent, but that's the question someone is asking themselves when they type this in. It's what is the best SEO agency and how do we answer that? We answer them extremely quickly with a top list, an ordered list, etc. Something very basic, effective, and detailed. After that, you'll find what you'll discover in this article, which isn't necessarily just a little optional. It's a bit like a summary in this case, but optional in my opinion. Thank you. But interesting for the LLM part. After that, we have the ranking of the best GEO agencies. Here, I'm showing you a typo that I will correct. The ranking of the best GEO agencies with something a bit more complete, the prices, etc. Something a bit more classic, let's say. Just to give Google different formats so they can pick up the table if they prefer a table, or the list if they prefer a list. And for people as well, by the way, which allows them to read the content a bit differently because everyone reads differently. And then more detailed content with, in this case, a little quiz to simulate interactivity, and then images, content, semantics. Anyway, you know all this already. The goal was just to show you this idea of intent. I think it was well demonstrated today. And with that, I wish you all a great day and some excellent SEO content.